we want to offer you some analysis. So we're going to bring in Kim Wehle. She's a professor of law at the University of Baltimore and author of the book, What You Need to Know About Voting and Why. And we always bring you in to talk about all these sort of constitutional related things. So here's where we stand now, Kim. There are a lot of questions about just how this trial is going to get underway. Who will preside over it? Will it be the Senate President pro tempore Patrick Leahy? He told MSNBC over the weekend that he is preparing for the possibility that he could potentially preside over the trial. So, break it down. How is this impeachment trial going to look different than the one that we saw the first time that President Trump was impeached?
Well, one big difference is we will see actual evidence in this trial. If you recall, the first round, there was a lot of debate between the Republicans and the Democrats as to whether there should be any actual witnesses called and documentary evidence submitted in the trial, which is traditionally what you think about for a trial. And Mitch McConnell succeeded in basically blocking that. This time we will see actual evidence. The second piece, it sounds like perhaps someone other than the Chief Justice would be presiding. The Constitution is really clear that it is the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court who is supposed to preside over this trial. So if anything is departing from the constitutional text, it would be that.
And another thing that is very different is that Donald Trump is actually no longer the president. And we heard a lot of Republicans say that that makes this process unconstitutional. Is that true?
Well, it's the pardon clause, or excuse me, the impeachment clause is relatively brief. It doesn't indicate whether it can happen after a president leaves office, but twice in his U.S. history, once in the late 1800s and once in the late 1700s, there were people that were impeached after leaving. And the reason for that is that otherwise, once somebody was impeached before they got to the trial part, they could say, I'm just going to resign, and basically kind of obliterate or make irrelevant the trial portion. So, the Congress can implement the impeachment clause this way, and there's nothing stopping it, and certainly nothing clearly in the Constitution stopping it. And so I think that that's more of a procedural argument that's trying to evade the facts, because the facts are quite compelling here and quite problematic. Really, it should be across the political spectrum. Inciting an insurrection goes at the heart of a democracy, whether it's a Republican president that was involved or a Democratic president that was involved.
I want to ask you about something else. A report by the Wall Street Journal sort of taking a look at what was happening behind the scenes while former President Trump was trying to fight the outcome of this election. And the report suggests that Mr. Trump tried to push Justice Department officials to file a Supreme Court lawsuit attempting to overturn the election. Now, officials reportedly pushed back against that plan because the argument was that the federal government had no legal interest in who won the election. The Justice Department represents the interests of the U.S., right? The citizens of the U.S. Would a lawsuit like this fall under its authority?
Well, there really isn't any law that allows anyone to go in and take the vote away from the American people in the kinds of numbers that the Trump campaign tried to do. That's all, I think, one of the reasons so many of them failed. There just isn't a basis for saying those were cast, that's what the people want, but we're going to come in and take them away based on some imperfection on the ballot. But the bigger issue really here is the Justice Department is supposed to operate in a neutral fashion to basically call balls and strikes about the laws insulated from the president. This isn't a law. This is more of a norm. And the idea is we don't want a system where, based on your political views, based on your exercise of your First Amendment rights, that's whether you're prosecuted or given a break. So traditionally, particularly post-Watergate, the Justice Department has not looked to the president for guidance on how to enforce the federal laws. And that was what was so problematic here is, listen, I'm going to fire the acting AG, Jeff Rosen, and put someone in that's going to do my political bidding for myself. And that's why we saw almost a mini Saturday Night Massacre potentially happen. That's hearkening back to Watergate, where the second tier people said, listen, we are all resigning if you do this. We can't in good conscience allow the Justice Department to be politicized and weaponized this way as a political arm, because that's a terrible precedent for Democrats and for Republicans.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask you about too, the significance of that. But I'm going to sort of, on top of that, I want to get your take on the fact that, yes, there was almost going to be mass resignations because of this, and whether or not you think this is an indication that we should be concerned about the Justice Department, or an indication that the Justice Department is staffed essentially with people who are committed to doing their job, and committed to staying out of politics.
I think it's the latter, having served in the Justice Department. I mean, these people, many of them could have had big, high-powered law firm jobs. They go to government because they care about the rule of law and they care about the cause of the American people. But we dodged a bullet to the heart of democracy this round. And I think the fact that President Biden is coming in with a new pledge for every federal worker to have to take, to promise to base their decisions on facts, not on hyperbole, falsehoods, and political motivations, is critical. But I also think Congress, just like post-Watergate, probably needs to come in and shore up legislatively some of these guardrails, and not rely so much on good faith norms and integrity, and really have consequences for when people politicize these institutions that are so fundamental to protecting democracy by we the people, which, as we saw, is not our birthright. It's a fragile thing that we all have to fight for, again, not around politics, but around the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans that other people on the planet don't have. And that's worth fighting for. And I think that's what the impeachment trial is about in part as well. It should not be politicized. It really is very important to send a message to all presidents, President Biden included, that this is not going to be tolerated, that we expect you to serve us, not serve your own interests.
Right. Kim Wehle, thank you so much.